Hello, I'm Lev Dolgatsov, angel investor and Tehnopol Startup Incubator key mentor, and today we will talk about going after your first investment. So, before going for first investment, you should ask yourself some questions. And first is maybe why do we need investors' money? Do we really need investors' money? And what we want to achieve with this money, when we want to achieve it, for how long will this money last, and maybe it's also essential to understand if achieving what you are aiming to achieve with this money will actually open the possibility to fundraise more money on higher valuation, like make next financing round happen, because this is how it goes with venture scaling model. Your financing rounds are like steps of rocket ship. So when you start to make your first step, you should already think about the second step, and you should think how much fuel do you need to have in first step, when this fuel will end, and when second step should be deployed, and what should happen with the help of the first step to make second step even making sense. So you should think about how much money do you need and when this money will be deployed. Also, think about, do you really need investors' money? Because equity financing is the most expensive way of most expensive money, because if your startup will fly high, then each share of your startup will be worth much more than it's worth now. So all other options like loans, like getting anything which you get basically without giving away the share of your company is mostly cheaper than giving away equity or shares of your company. So maybe there are some options, like maybe you can make some sort of contract with your future customer who probably will already be willing to give you money in advance, maybe for huge discount, maybe for big benefit in future, but so it makes sense also for them, but also it makes sense for you because you get money and you can execute with this money without giving away shares of your company. Think about how much money do you need, because sometimes startups underestimate or overestimate the amount of money they need in this round. Generally, it's not a good idea to get too much money in advance, like just in case, or like getting money for 3 years, because it's more beneficial to get money for 1 year or year and a half, maybe 2 years, depending of the type of startup or on the stage you are, and then get more money later at a higher valuation if you achieve some goals with first money. How much equity can you give away in this round to investors? Giving away 30 or 50% of your equity in the very first round will basically almost close the path to future rounds for you. So your first round may easily become the last one, or you will have to make some very significant changes later to be still able to fundraise. Generally, it's a good idea. In the very first round, you should aim at the rule of thumb is you should not give away more than 10 to 15% of the equity. Worst case scenario, 20% of equity, but it's already a bit dangerous. So under 10 is good. 10 to 15 is all right. More than 15 up to 20 is not very beneficial. More than 20, I should say, you will probably have a problem later. What type of investors do you need? Do you need investors who contribute with much more than money, or a little bit more than money, or just with money? Like the ones who can mentor you, who can help you, who can connect you to customers, future customers, connect you to partners, or you have a strong vision, you like have your own idea about how it will work, and you just need silent investors who will not mess around and just let you make things you're doing without asking many questions, and just believing in what you're doing, and it's the best way for you. So you should understand which way is your way, and when you talk with potential investor, you should understand if your vision about this is matching. Because if you take money from an investor who expects to be actively involved in I will not say everyday operations, but like on very regular basis, actively involved in sometimes even in decision making in your company, but your expectation is investor just gives money and basically you send her or him some updates once in a while, and it's all right for you, then you will have a problem because your expectations are not matching. So you should understand what is investor you're talking with, matching the profile of investor you need. Or maybe you need an investor who is a specialist in a very particular area and you cannot move forward otherwise. Then you should search this particular area expert, for example. Or maybe you need strategic investor right away who will just become your customer and maybe will buy out your company later. Sometimes it's good for founders. It's not always good for other investors, but for founders sometimes it's good, but not always. Who will give you money if you need investors' money? Bootstrapping is the first way of get funding. It's basically taking money out of your pockets and using it to run your startup. Loans. Some personal loans from your friends or loans from bank if you have something that would be good enough for bank to accept as a collateral, because banks mostly do not finance startups, so getting loan is mostly about getting some sort of personal loan which is backed by some property. So-called FFF people, like friends, fans, family, the ones who love you, the ones who like you, the ones who maybe are willing to support you, even if you will, even like people who sometimes even ready to lose it all, but they just want to support you, and they are giving you money just because they want to support you. It would be a good practice to give them some minor share in the company, mostly if it's a significant money. If it's a small money, maybe you can just take it for free, or maybe you can just give it back later. Angel investors like me, people who invest in early stage companies, who are ready to take the risks, who know many companies will bankrupt, and it's all right, because some companies will be big winners, and those big wins will make it up for investors, make it up losing money with other companies. So like risk capitalists of why angel investors? Because mostly these people are also ready to help you, not only with money, but with their expertise, with advice, with time. So that's why they are called angels. Incubators, accelerators, some of them are not giving money, giving you knowledge. Some of them are also giving money, mostly not big money, but again, it depends. So they also can be a source of monetary funds. VC funds and family offices on very early stage, they are not always available to you as possible investors, but sometimes they are, especially family offices who are much more flexible because they are using their own money as angels investor too. Just family offices usually invest a bit more than angels, but they mostly invest their own money or money of very limited amount of their customers, so they are quite flexible. Sometimes they can invest in startup they like without being in a need to justify it to their own investors. Growth capital, private capital, IPO, it's not about the first investment mostly, so I will not talk about this much now. Crowdfunding sometimes is a good way to get money, even first money for startup. There are several crowdfunding, even in Estonia there are more than one crowdfunding options, and in the Europe and the world there are many crowdfunding options. You can Google it, and, or you can ask Tehnopol which ones are relevant at the moment you are watching this video. So I guess you will get some names. I don't want to promote anyone here. Crowdfunding has its own pros and cons, but crowdfunding is almost always good when you have some products or goods you are selling to so-called B2C customers, not to companies but to people. Food, drinks, something like some gadgets, just to give you an idea. So with crowdfunding you can not only raise money but also create a fan base and create a loyal customer base. Sometimes it's good, but with crowdfunding you should remember it's not always good to be too enthusiastic with your valuation, because once you fundraise with high valuation, you need to raise with even higher valuation next time. And if you start too high, then sometimes it's very hard to raise at higher valuation later. So you should be careful. Sometimes crowd is ready to pay you a bit more for your shares, then it makes sense if you're aiming to raise more money in future. Grants, not so much in Estonia available yet, but some are. Again, you can ask Tehnopol about what kind of grants can you possibly find in Estonia at the moment. There are some options. This money is mostly so-called free, like you don't have to give equity, but sometimes it has some strings attached, so you have to fill up many papers, then later you have to fill up more papers. Then if you use these funds not exactly the way they meant to be used, probably you can have a problem later. So not all grants are exactly, they are equity free, but not all of them are exactly, say, trouble free, or some of them are time consuming. So just read the details. What's your startup valuation? It's like almost every startup asks, okay, but we want to fundraise, but how can we understand what's our valuation? How much our company is worth? When we probably even have no revenue, have no numbers to calculate something. So this is a slide just to give you an idea. It shows rounds and valuations. Depending on the round, valuation is changing, and so just you can take a look at this table. It's more or less understandable. My personal approach is to startup valuation, like to calculating or to understanding the startup valuation is I think, okay, how much money this startup needs now in this round, then what is the timeline, like the things I told at the very beginning, like how much time do you need, how much money do you need, what's the how much equity can you give to investors? Like giving away too much can get you into trouble later. Giving away too little maybe will not make investors too enthusiastic. For example, startup needs 250K and can give away 10% of the equity in this round. It gives me a valuation of 2.5 million. Then I look at where this startup is, what is already achieved. Does this number make any sense at all? Mostly when I'm thinking about the next funding round, like because next round should be at higher valuation. Otherwise, investors who invest now are taking risk but getting no reward. Which again makes no sense for them. So, okay, I take a look, 2.5, this particular startup, where they are. Does it make any sense? Is it more or less what startups in this stage, in this region are getting or are having as valuation in rounds like this? If it more or less matches this simple mathematics and if it makes sense, again, I will stress like how investors of the next round will like it. Will it be fine for them, or will they say, okay, this last round was already a too high valuation, sorry, like, and now you want to raise it even higher valuation. So if this mathematics is matching for me, then this valuation is fine for me. But some investors use Excel sheets with very complicated mathematics. But at the end of the day, anyway, it all more or less goes to the same numbers, whichever method you are using. So I think it's it for today, and you should remember that there is an investor for every startup in this world. You just have to find your own investor or investors sometimes, or mostly it's better to have more than one investor. Thank you.